Yo, 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 yo. We are back for episode 71
Whew.
of Drunk on Broad. We got the Drunk on Ice crew here. Well, listen, there's hockey just ended, so we're gonna talk some hockey, but we're gonna talk some hoops, we're gonna talk some baseball, talk some 4th of July. Jay, welcome in, brother. What's going on?
Dude, I feel like we never left our chairs from last night.
Hey, listen, yo, Jay, the conversations there got a little real. But I think the important thing is that we're having the conversations. The conversations are out there on your hate to feel show, and super kudos for you for putting that platform together for people to be able to have that opportunity to be able to talk about some funky stuff and you know be able to have those real conversations without anybody getting really offended. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate the kind words and I appreciate you being a part of it. And I know I'm sure it won't be the last time I have you on as a guest, but I know that I really appreciated you giving your perspective on being a teacher and a lot of the stuff that's going on now today, and
Mhm.
obviously with the COVID stuff and the other kind of stuff we talked about. So kudos to you. Appreciate it.
Hey,
And as always, excited to be back in the chair, ready to talk some shop with you here. And as you mentioned, we're going to get started with some hockey.
yeah,
Obviously, it's been a while since we've talked about hockey.
yeah. It's been a couple weeks, but listen, you got you had some insanely as ticky tack foul. The penalties were called during the playoffs. It was really good hockey in that final. The matchup between the Lightning and the Avalanche played out almost exactly the way we thought it might, just battling back and forth. You know, you have, Colorado takes game one, 4-3, and then they take game two. Game two, Jay, to be truthful, I thought the series was over. When they win game two, 7-0, and they just put an ass whooping on them. You know, I didn't think Tampa had it in them to battle back like they did, but they did.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that I pounded my chest, but I actually did. I believed in the Lightning the entire even up until Game 6. Um, when they lost. I obviously you know I predicted. Actually, I think both of us predicted the Lightning in the beginning of the year, and we both predicted the Lightning to beat the Avalanche. So we had the two teams right. We just had the wrong outcome.
Right.
Thanks, Adam. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah. Listen, Adam, Chris, Mike, all checking in. Mike, listen, at the end of this Stanley Cup conversation, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't touch base on this the goalie that the Flyers had just signed from Russia, who's now in Russian federal custody. Uh, you're right, Mike. That story is fucking bananas. Um, but Jay, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no, it. So I mean, obviously, like I said, we had both of the teams right. The wrong outcome. I mean, I will say I'm happy for the Avalanche. I was I only wanted the Lightning to win because I appreciate greatness and I wanted to kind of see a three-peat because of the fact that it doesn't happen very often. It's
Mm-hmm.
extremely rare. Obviously, I had mentioned before that the Bulls were the last team to three-peat that
Right.
that 1990s era of the Bulls. So I was kind of wanting that, but I'm not going to lie. I am happy for the Avalanche, and I think it couldn't have happened to a better franchise. A franchise that definitely deserves it. They've won cups prior, but it's been a while, and I think, this team is built for the long haul. And I think both teams, as you said, we saw superior hockey. It was basically like the two teams that should be there. Even on paper, because you look at the rosters, and I mean, obviously, the Oilers, had a star-studded roster as well. But I think the Oilers were more of like if you look at the Oilers, they're more of like a top-end team. They have they're top-heavy. They have a
Correct.
couple guys that are extremely great, but their roster up and down is not as balanced as Tampa or Colorado. So I think
No,
it
no,
was
no, not at all. You're right. You're
definitely the
right.
two teams that
Edmonton is very top heavy, and then the drop off between the top and everybody else is significant. Where you know the thing I want to touch on something you just mentioned, the way that those two teams were built, very similar, right? The way that Tampa and Colorado were built, a lot of internal player development, a lot of drafting the right guy, scouting the right guy, developing the right guy, and getting them all to kind of thrive all at the same time, right? Like look no further than the guy that won the MVP, right? Cale Makar is a guy who how how you can look at and I know it's revisionist history, right? But how you can look at him and then draft somebody else. I just have no words, Jay. I don't know that, and like we've said before, that's a whole different show, right? All of the missed opportunities in terms of draft picks.
I
But
swear we are going to have that show, folks. Actually, I think you, Don, Joe, and Rich, all of us, we
oh
need
my
to have
God,
that show on worst, the ineptitude of drafts in Philadelphia history
truly,
and the history of that. But yeah, you're
I
right.
mean,
I mean, Kale McCarr, obviously stud, um, but I think it speaks more so to Colorado's development
mhm.
more so than him actually being an elite prospect coming out. Because I think if you did, and you called it revisionist, and it is kind of revisionist, it's probably us playing Monday morning quarterback. But the fact remains, like obviously Nolan Patrick at this point is a bust. We all know that. Obviously, at the time, a lot of people wanted him, and
Yes, yes.
at the
And
time, he was probably one of the better prospects coming out. So you couldn't really fault them at that point. But I think Kale McCarr tells the story to me of how good Colorado is at actually developing their players, because he's not a guy that just burst onto the scene. He's slowly become better every year.
right.
Obviously, this year it culminated in being the MVP of of the finals. But I mean,
I know I'm cherry picking facts here. It's to fit my narrative. I know.
and that's okay.
I'm going to be
You
honest with
do that.
myself. I know. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to see the failed draft picks, and then the guys that are drafted after them that go on to be successful. Um, but Jay, the 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 type of hockey that we saw throughout these games, speed, efficiency. Jay, I could comfortably say that the worst play in each game was better than anything I saw with the Flyers all year long.
I, I mean, yeah,
Like,
that's an understatement.
right?
Well, I mean, you heard it right out of the horse's mouth. I probably watched maybe 3 Flyers games in total in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make me less of a fan for all those people out there that did and criticized me. Whatever. I didn't want to watch it because I was so disgusted. And that's my prerogative.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean I'm
Sure.
not a Flyers fan. it means I was absolutely appalled at not
Right.
only the way the team played, but the way that this season just disintegrated and the lack of care from the franchise
Right.
to even admit that there was a failure. And then, of course, that culminated in trading away Giroux, who is really the only player that I really liked left on the roster besides Carter Hart.
Right.
But what I will say is I did watch just about every minute of the Stanley Cup Finals, and that was because of the fact that the hockey was just awesome.
The
I mean,
the product on the ice was
yeah.
phenomenal.
I mean,
Right. And that game 6 where they win Colorado wins 2-1, even down until the last couple plays, right? It's you could not take your eyes off of that game. And Colorado wins in 6, right? And I think I got to bring this up to see how they are handling this cup. To see even within the first 10 minutes of them having it, and it already gets the dent in it. You saw the guy holding it above his head, falling down. Just fun. Like I can say this: they're enjoying themselves, and they've earned that right to just do whatever they want and enjoy it as much as they possibly can. Um, I can't tell you that if I were in their position, I probably wouldn't be doing. I'd be doing the same thing.
well, I saw the Twitter today of the guy in bed with the sheet over. I guess he's naked under the covers. He's got the cup laying there.
He was sleeping with it.
I mean that to me is actually pretty cool. Like
That's
that would
pretty
probably
awesome.
be me sleeping with the cup. Like,
I love it.
but yeah, I agree, Mike. Yeah, listen. At the end of the day, they're young guys, and it's dude. When you win a cup, like that's what's so frustrating because we haven't won since 1975. I'm
Just
46, dude. They haven't won. They didn't win. I wasn't born the last time they won. That's what's bad. And I'm
yeah,
46 years old. I'm old, guys.
yeah.
So it, I just want one cup. Like I said it about the Super Bowl, and we got 2017. Well, now I need that from the
Yeah.
Flyers sometime before 2049. Because
Well, listen to just kind of to talk to. Let's talk about the Flyers for half a second, right? You got the draft coming up at the end of this week, right? And Chris wants to know who do we think the Flyers are going to pick? And listen, I'm going to go right to one of our probably most trusted people that we trust in terms of their opinion with the Flyers, right? And Jesse brings up either Savoy or Nimchek, right? I think there's enough talent for me at the top of this draft that you're going to be able to get somebody who can impact this team in not a long timeline, right? There's enough guys in this draft that like they pick the right guy. That they don't have to wait 3 to 5 years to be able to get to the Flyers to become an impact player.
oh,
Do you have a guy
absolutely.
in mind, Jay?
I mean, I think Jesse's spot on with both of those guys. I mean, I don't I don't project myself as a draft expert, but I've kind of researched both of them, in minuscule ways, and I've from what I see and the reports are, I like what I see from both of them. I think if I had my preference, I'd like Savoy
Okay.
personally, but I'd be happy with either one. I mean, obviously, you're going to get a good player in this pick. I mean, it's just a matter of can the Flyers develop said pick because that's what's
Correct.
frustrating. Like, it's not that I don't think that we just fail in who we draft necessarily. It's more so a failure of being able to get those guys to the next level and have them succeed. Because I look at a guy like Morgan Frost, who I still believe Morgan Frost has a lot of talent. I just don't know if the Flyers have failed him or it's been him that's kind of not lived up to expectations. Like, whose fault is it? Or is it a little bit of both? I don't know. It's hard for me to tell because Morgan Frost really didn't play that much in the NHL. Like, he hasn't had a huge body of work. So it's not like I could sit there and say, oh, well, he doesn't do this well or he does that well. Like, I saw some improvements with him towards the end of the year. But like I said, it's not a large enough sample size for me to turn around and say, well, he's a bust or he's a failure. But I don't also see enough there to say, wow, I think the Flyers really got something there.
To be truthful, Jay, there's a shared responsibility, right? There's a shared responsibility from the organization's standpoint of putting the right people around them to be able to develop them into viable talent at the National Hockey League level. But there's also some responsibility on the player, right? To, if they're not being productive, to advocate for themselves and say, hey, listen, whatever you got me doing isn't working. Let's try something different. Because a lot of these kids have been in player development programs. Let's be honest, probably longer than they could walk, right? They've been in those skates before they could walk. So to me, it's a shared responsibility, right? But I'm trying to think here, like and Adam, the coach Tortorella, I like it. I like it from a standpoint where you have the opportunity to be able to get a guy in there. It's not going to take anybody's bullshit. That he's going to hold people accountable. Do I think that he's the kind of coach that is going to turn around and put them in the contention for a cup? That's not where this team is. But do I think that he's the coach that could get them to the next stop where they are holding each other accountable? They're contending for a playoff spot. Maybe they win a round in the playoffs. I think Tortorella could be that guy. Jay, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the coach, I was definitely happy with Tortorella. I think you have to get somebody in here that, obviously that word's going to be thrown around a ton with Tortorella, accountability, because that's basically his MO.
Right.
I do think there's something to be said for when you have a roster that basically was lifeless. You need a coach of that caliber to me to kind of like demand, not ask, but demand the best out of his players and demand effort on a daily basis, on a nightly basis, I should say. It's not daily because they don't play today, but
that's right though. But listen, they're on those. I'm not going to call them off days, but on those non-game days, right? They're training, their practice, right? So there is an account, and again, I truly believe that that's a shared responsibility, right? It's on the coach and the team and the organization to hold them accountable. But as a professional athlete, when that is your profession, when that's your job, that is your career, it's on you to hold yourself accountable as well.
But I think you do have to start asking that. Well, it's probably old hat, but when does it become time to ask the question? When is it the players? Because we've been through how many coaches in this city with the Flyers? I mean, recently.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like, okay, team fails, replace coach. Team fails, replace coach. But sooner or later, you got to start saying, well, what about the roster? Now, I look at the roster and I look at, okay, what long-term players are still here?
Okay.
Like, to me, Giroux was kind of the last guy. Like, you had, obviously, Voracek the year before they got rid of Giroux. You had Simone Gagne obviously retire. But, like, I look at that era of, like, the 2010 team that went to the Cup. So, you don't have anybody left from that era. So this is more so like, okay, well, where is this era from? And you look at it, and it's kind of a mixture because you got obviously your guys that were drafted in the Hextall era, like your Farabys and Carter Hart. You
Right.
know, you could go down the list, but you also have a ton of free agents. You have Kevin Hayes, who's brought in. They paid him a lot of money.
I think you might be, I think this team might be in a position where they see a lot of changeover. I think you're going to see them, especially with those 1 year deals. Remember, I can listen. Go back to our Drunk on Ice episode 1, right, where we were
High as a kite.
high as a kite on all the guys that they brought in, and they brought them in on 1 year kind of prove it deals, and nobody really proved anything. So I think that gave them the flexibility to be able to move on from those guys that didn't produce, and gives them the flexibility to be able to go out and get guys that. And I think Torvella is going to be hands on in terms of kind of cherry picking guys that he likes to be able to be productive in a system that he plans on running.
And by the way, I like that. I think I think we need a coach that's going to stand up to the front office, or AKA Bobby Clark and Paul Holmgren, because I still believe that at the end of the day, they're the guys realistically pulling the strings. I know,
Gotcha.
like, Chuck Fletcher's the GM de facto, but to me, it's like he's a figurehead, because there's no way in hell that they go and then you have those reports that Scott hired that outside firm to actually pick the coach. A lot of it just doesn't make sense. To me, it just seems like a franchise that's dysfunctional from the very top. And it just kind of seeps its way down into the ranks of that. But like I said, I want a coach that's going to, because the coach to me is the lifeline of your team. He's on the front line with the team. He's the guy that realistically knows if these guys can play or if they're actually giving a damn. So I think Torella will have no bones about him that he'll be able to go to Fletcher and say, yo, this guy, I've sat him and he's still doing the same thing. I want him out of here. I'm not necessarily saying you can do that with every single player on the roster, but I think there has to be that discussion and that conversation that, listen, I'm not taking shit. I was brought in here for one reason. I was brought in here to win a cup. At the end of the day, is this team even close to that? Probably not. But
all right, Jay, here's the magic question from Chris. Chris, submit a bit of some advice.
I had coffee, I would have spit it out.
Don't hold your breath, brother.
I'm gonna
keep cheering on your team, but Chris,
2000.
Here, Jay, you take a
Here's
sip.
my prediction.
Go ahead.
Flyers will win a cup before 2029.
You think?
Yeah. So I think it has to change, and sooner or later, I think we have to start kind of going back to the good side. Like, we've been pretty much even keel to mediocre for the larger part of 10 years. I mean,
right.
If you look back, they've made the playoffs 4 times in since 2011. I think, was it 4 or 5? So it's like every other year. But making the playoffs and doing anything in the playoffs is a different story. I mean, 2010, you made it to the finals, and the only other year that you made it a decent, semi-decent run was 3 years ago when you played Montreal in the second round. Or was it No, you lost to the Islanders. You beat Montreal.
Right. Islanders.
And that was that, team that I really think overachieved. I mean, Carter Hart was playing out of his mind. He pretty much stole the end of that season and the playoffs. I mean, but overall body of work, it's been mediocre. So I I maybe it's a hope and a prayer, but I got my fingers crossed that it's going to turn around. It's just a matter of how quick can that turnaround be, and is it going to be a full-on rebuild where they just blow it up and just keep a couple guys, or is it going to be kind of a retool where you get rid of the dead weight and you get some guys that actually can play some hockey? I don't know. I don't have that answer. I'm not, I don't have a crystal ball, but
No.
I'm telling you right now, if it doesn't change, I am going to be so pissed off.
Jay, listen, here the hard part for me, right, is that I have to take the orange goggles off and look at this realistically. And when I see what I saw in that Stanley Cup final,
Yeah, they're not close.
the team that I'm watching isn't even playing the same sport. They're not. They're like that is the equivalent, Jay. Like you go back to high school, right? You remember watching the varsity team and then the JV team, right? Like whether it was basketball or football, like the difference between the varsity team that played on Saturday night and the JV team that played behind the school on Monday afternoon are two completely different animals. And that's where I feel like where this team is. Mike goes
I mean, you're not
20
wrong.
to a 2058. Good God. Who knows? Listen, I hope it's sooner than then. But listen, Jay, we're gonna wrap up the hockey talk with a suggestion from Mike about there's a what's he say? So there's a document, there's an unrivaled documentary on ESPN Plus about the As Red Wings rivalry in the late '90s. Mike, that's gonna be a must watch tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's a good recommendation. Um, Jay, any other hockey stuff before we kind of jump into the NBA real quick?
No, I mean, I think we pretty much touched on it. Basically, the bottom line is the Avs and Lightning are built for the long haul and they're elite, and the Flyers have a lot of
They ain't
hard
going
work.
anywhere anytime soon. So with that, listen, Jay, we can jump right in. The NBA offseason has been insane. That when that free agency period hits at 6 o'clock on Thursday, you couldn't refresh the Twitter feed fast enough to keep up with all the stuff. Um, and we can just kind of go down the list. But was there any deal or any player movement that you saw, right? Because the first day, you kind of had some usual suspects that moved. You had guys that signed extensions. Bradley Beal goes back to the Wizards. Zach LaVine goes back to the Bulls. Jalen Brunson signs a 4-year, $110 million deal with the Knicks. PJ Tucker, we can start with let's start hometown team, right? Like, so the Sixers bring in PJ Tucker, right? What are your thoughts on PJ Tucker?
Well, here's the deal. I don't know much about the guy because I'm not a huge basketball, insider. I don't know a lot about teams outside of Philly. I know the name Kevin Durant, obviously.
Yeah.
That's a name that I know very well, and I know LeBron James. But as far as a guy like PJ Tucker, I know he was he was on the Houston Rockets.
Correct.
Obviously, when James Harden was there back in the day. What I hear about PJ Tucker is he's a guy that brings tenacity and grit and a lot of heart, and he could shoot. He could shoot the 3 ball, and he can pretty much. He's like a small type center that can kind of fill that void that we've been looking for a long time. So I think he fills a huge need that this team has. We didn't have guys that had a lot of heart like that, and we need somebody like that on our roster.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are complaining because he's 37 years old, but I mean, I look at what he did last year, and stat-wise, he had one of his best career seasons. So I don't think he's like a guy that's trending in the wrong direction at 37.
Right. Yeah.
I let's put it this way. I think the Sixers so far with what they've done, going out and trading for D'Anthony Melton,
Yeah.
and obviously on the draft night, and then getting PJ Tucker and the couple other signings that they made. It's obvious that their plan was to fix the two major areas of need, and those two areas were to get more athletic, which D'Anthony Melton is definitely athletic.
Correct.
Anthony Melton can also shoot, and he can shoot the three.
Right.
Thanks, Moyo. I appreciate you, brother.
Yep.
You got obviously PJ Tucker, as I mentioned. He's gonna bring the heat. He's gonna be that in your face type guy that we were missing.
Right.
He's tenacious, and the other signings, obviously, you're helping your bench. So I don't necessarily think the Sixers are done, but if you ask me today, if they are done, if they've improved, I think it's obvious that they improved the areas that they needed to fix. Now, yet to be written is whether James Harden will actually come back and be the player that we got when we first got him in the regular season, as opposed to James Harden that we saw in the playoffs. Because if we get James Harden that we got in the beginning of the season when we traded for him, that 22 point, 10 rebound type guy, I don't think you need more out of James Harden because you still have Embiid and you have Tobias, who I actually think was pleasantly surprising in the playoffs. I thought Tobias was actually their best player besides Embiid in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I look at Maxey as the X factor because he went from like here to here. And another kind of incremental jump like that, I think the Sixers, listen.
There's a lot of exponential growth, right, with Maxey, and you need James Harden to be Chris Paul, right? That you see where Chris Paul was in his career and where he is with the Suns. If James Harden can be that guy that facilitates, right, that guy that is able to get into the paint and then dish and create space for guys, right? Here's what I like about these moves. It pushes guys like Shake Milton and Furkan Korkmaz and you name it. It pushes those guys further away from getting productive minutes because those guys they're not productive NBA players. Where like a guy like PJ Tucker is, if he slots into that role in the starting five where Matisse Thybulle was playing at the end of the season and in the playoffs, right? But Matisse Thybulle was a hole on defense or a hole on offense. He was productive on defense, and then that kind of trickled and waned. But like, you're replacing him with a productive, seasoned NBA veteran and a guy that is his only role on the offensive end is going to be to stand in the corner and hit threes. That's his job, right? And then on the defensive end, play lockdown defense and get boards, right? His role was not going to be really, really difficult. Daniel House is a 29-year-old NBA veteran, right? But a guy who shoots in the mid to high 30s from the 3-point, is athletic. Like the D'Anthony Melton, he's 24 and is a better, younger version of kind of what Danny Green is. I like those moves because those moves push those other guys that I think are they're like, I heard Dom say this on Fired Up with you guys on Monday night. He's a 4A guy, right? He's a guy who's just good enough to be better than like the G League, but not good enough to be really good in the NBA. So like he's in that flux. So I think I like where they are. And Jay, I'm with you. I don't think they're done. I think there's a good chance that those guys that we just mentioned, right? Matisse Thybulle, I think Tobias Harris, Korkmaz, Shake Milton. I think those guys could be trade candidates as either small packages or part of a package. Um, as much, and I'm gonna pull up Mike here, right? Mike's the only one who doesn't want Kevin Durant. Um, Mike, listen, for as annoying as he might be, he's a top 3 guy. If you put him on the same court with Embiid and Harden and PJ Tucker, you're writing yourself to be right in the position to be at the top of the East all year long. And I think that's a guy that's the caliber of player that I'm willing to sell on a young talent like Maxi. I can't, but I can't. I'm not going to trade him for somebody else, right? But if it's a chance, I just think at the end of the day, as much as Embiid wants the Sixers to go all in and push all in, I don't know if at the end of the day the package that they have is going to be better than something like right now the perennial favorite is the Suns, right? The Suns are the favorite to get because they have young athletic wings. They got a stockpile of draft picks.
I mean, if you get Kevin Durant, to me that would be like the equivalent of getting Aaron Rodgers on the Eagles.
Truly,
dude, I'm serious. Like that,
yeah, you're right.
That level.
Yeah,
I mean, Pat Mahomes, like he's a top. You said top 3. I think Kevin Durant, whatever conference he's in, he drives whatever conference is better. If he's in the West will be better. If he's in the East will be better. That's how much of an impact he has on the league at this point, even at 33. Mm-hmm. And you're right, Mike. I can't stand the guy. I think he is annoying. He's very arrogant, and he's not the most, let's say, just doesn't seem like a nice guy. But you know what? At the end of the day, I don't need a nice guy. I want somebody that's going to help us win. And honestly, if we got him, I think that would probably be one of the best signings that Philadelphia's ever had.
Oh, truly.
Well, we'd have to trade for him. So it would be one of the best trades ever if we were to get Kevin Durant. I mean, like I said, it's the equivalent of getting a top guy in their sport. I mean, it would be like getting, I'm trying to think in baseball.
I mean, it'd be like trading for Mike Trout.
Or, yeah, exactly. Mike Trout, like one of them. Yeah. I mean, it's that level. So I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, I see all the rumors out there that, well, not rumors, but the fact that he's part owner of the union.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
business
he owns a 5% stake in the union. Yes, he's involved in the investment group with Michael Rubin. Yes, but listen, those guys have their hands in business ventures all over the U.S. So yes, there is some stuff here. Do I think at the end of the day that's enough for him to walk in there and say, I'm only going to the Sixers? No, I don't.
I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, it depends on where he wants to go. But I also think that the Sixers do have enough ammo if you were to offer, say, Tobias, Maxi, Thybulle, and like 3 first-rounders. I think that would get it done. But
I mean, but Jay, you look at that. You look at that PG trade, right? When Paul George gets traded to the Clippers, right? They gave up 5 first-round picks, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and a bunch of other guys. Like that package. I mean, even Jay, look at the package for a guy like Rudy Gobert today, right? Rudy Gobert gets shipped off to Minnesota, and the amount of talent, and I won't say talent, but the the Timberwolves are sending Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverly, their first round pick from this year, Jared Vanderbilt, and multiple first round picks for Rudy Gobert. And now here's the part for the Timberwolves that I don't understand right now is that it in a league that is trending younger, positionless, more athletic, they're going on the complete opposite end, and they're going to pair two really big dudes in Cat and Rudy Gobert with Anthony Edwards, which I think, Cat's going to step out and Cat's going to be a four, right? He's going to be your swing guy that's going to stand on the perimeter and kind of play that role similar to what Embiid does. But you're also going to have a guy like Rudy Gobert. I think what teams are going to start doing on them is exactly what you saw in the finals, is just run up and down, because those two guys are not going to be able to keep up with them athletically.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think at the end of the day, my opinion is that the Sixers have improved, and
Oh
obviously,
yes,
if we got Kevin Durant, that would be like, I'm not saying definitely guaranteeing a chip, but it would be probably
I
your
mean,
best chance ever in the
Jay,
longest of
the,
times.
it, and this might be over the head of some of the people tuning in or listening back, but like it would be the equivalent of what the Sixers did in the early '80s when they got Moses Malone,
Oh,
right? They got that, and as soon as the Sixers made that trade, they were light years ahead of everybody, and they basically rolled through the regular season right into that championship. So, would I love for it to happen? I'd be going bonkers, but I think for me, I just don't know. Like I look at the trade package that the Phoenix is talking about putting together with Bridges, uh, Johnson, the wing, and then they're talking about including DeAndre Ayton and multiple picks. Like it's hard, right? Because it's all gonna depend on what the Nets want to do. And I think at the end of the day, the Nets would rather ship him out west and have him play in the Western Conference rather than ship him east and have to face him multiple times throughout the season, maybe face him in the playoffs. I just want to live in a world where Ben Simmons ends up looking like Will Smith at the end of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, standing in the living room where there's no furniture, where he's looking around and Kyrie Irving's gone because he's a kook, and Kevin Durant is he's gone, and Ben Simmons is going. Wait, what am I doing here? Like I want to live in that world where Ben Simmons gets the shaft after the nonsense that he pulled last year.
yeah, and I mean, I know there's not an exact known fact of why these guys want out, but you have to believe that a lot of it has to do with Ben Simmons. So what does that tell you? I mean, it's
Yeah,
just one more example of how the guy is just not built for the NBA. And my hot take, this is a hot take.
go ahead.
I believe Ben Simmons will be out of the NBA within 2 years. He will not be playing basketball.
Wow.
I don't think he cares about it. I think he's
He
that.
he loves everything that comes with being an NBA basketball player, but doesn't love being an NBA basketball player.
Man.
Right? He had back surgery not too long ago, right after he got traded, and then was doing rehab, but couldn't ever get it together enough to play. What's he doing at the beginning of last week, Jay? He's on a he's on a
I haven't been
boat
following him.
in he's on a boat in the middle of the ocean, deep sea fishing. To me, you see a guy that just likes he likes being a celebrity and everything that comes with it, but doesn't love all the stuff. So that's where I'm like, it's a guy that had all the talent in the world and didn't want to do anything with it. So, who else? Who got moved today? So the Celtics pick up Malcolm Brogdon from Indiana in a trade that doesn't make any sense to me. They got back, they got back Daniel Tice, they got back the big guy Williams, and then picks, which to me that makes no sense for Indiana at all. The Hawks trade Kevin Herter. Trying to think who else. Who else did I see here? A bunch of dudes that signed max deals. Ja, how about okay? So let's talk about this for a second, right? Ja Morant and Zion Williamson both signed rookie max, super max deals, 5 years, $230 million. Tell me what's wrong with that picture. How do you look at a guy like Zion Williamson who can't get healthy enough to stay on the floor and look at a guy like Ja Morant who is way outkicked his coverage? How do they both get the same deal?
It's monopoly money.
Oh, Jay, the number is bonkers. Any normal human being will never understand the idea of getting paid $230 million to play a sport. The money is beyond bonkers. But how do those two guys get the same deal? Like, I don't see what the Pelicans see in Zion Williamson at all. Do you see? Other than a dude that just got super overweight.
I mean, they still think highly of him, I guess. I mean, look at how much money Tobias Harris got. I mean, I'm not saying Tobias is bad, but it's just the NBA. The NBA to me is just like it is. It's monopoly money. It's basically guys getting, millions and millions of dollars
To play a sport. It's crazy. It's crazy. So listen, I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed on the it seems like the Harden deal is gonna be a team friendlier deal, probably in the 2 to 3, somewhere in the neighborhood of, I want to say like 85, which will probably get done sooner than later. I think once that deal's done, I think then if you're going to see any other dominoes drop, I think you're going to see if they can move Thibault for maybe another guy that's in his same position, a guy that's like maybe needs a change of scenery. That might be a move that you could make. Maybe get somebody who could be more productive on the offensive end. If they can move Harris's contract, I think they might, but I don't think. And Chris, Chris was asking about the two guys. Daniel House is a guy that is going to be a semi-productive, bench player. And Travell Queen, he was the G League MVP, but a guy who played, end of the game minutes in the NBA. So, if you get anything productive out of those two guys, I think you're on the right track.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Let's talk some diamond, right? The Phils win tonight. They explode in their series finale against the Braves. Talk to me about the Phils. Talk to me about where you're at with the Phils.
I mean, it's hard to pinpoint my exact pulse, but I will say that I've been saying it since Harper went down this team still has a decent roster on paper, and they have a lot of players that have underperformed this year.
Mhm.
That if those guys can turn it around, I don't think we'll have any issue staying in contention for that wild card. And that's without even making a trade. I think part of me said that I thought that they needed to pull a trigger quick on a trade, but the more I've kind of hemmed and hawed about it, I've come to the conclusion I think it's kind of a wait and see thing right now, because I don't think you want to necessarily make a trade without knowing what you have within. And why I say that is a guy like Derek Hall, who 14th round pick, he's I looked at his numbers in the minor leagues. He's consistently put up good power numbers. So I believe his first year he had 20 home runs, then he had 26, then he had 27. Then I think the shortened COVID season he had like 15, and
Okay.
now he has 20 this year. So he's definitely a guy that's capable of producing some power. Um, he's a left-handed bat, which obviously Harper, with Harper out, you need that.
Definitely.
So
Like
if you
like
can
listen,
get,
he's been, the fact that his first three hits in the major leagues are all home runs, right? Has another one tonight. Puts him up 4-3. They go on to, Hoskins homers after him to win 5-3. I like that they were able to kind of show some resolve in being able to come back, because they gave up, right? They were down 3-0 early, right? In the third inning, they're down 3-0. And if there's anything that I've seen, especially in when they were going through that 15-2 stretch, they aren't. I'm not going to call them like cardiac kids, but they are a team that has become resilient in terms of utilizing every single out.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with the manager and how he's kind of rallied the troops. Um, I think I've been saying also that you need to have that better approach at the plate, and like you said, if you have guys going up there swinging at the first pitch, you're almost helping the other team.
Mm.
So I think the resolve definitely shows that this team has a lot of heart, and they're playing for this coach. Whatever Rob Thompson is doing, he's pushing some right buttons. Has he been perfect? Absolutely not. I mean, there's still some issues on the team. I mean, obviously the bullpen is semi turned it around, but I'm still not sold on the bullpen, so to speak.
Gotcha.
The starting pitching as a whole unit has been pleasantly surprising, but I would say besides Nola and Wheeler, it's a little shaky for between Ranger, Eflin, who's now on the IL.
Right.
Then you had Bailey Falter pitch today, which he was kind of so-so. I wouldn't say he had a terrible outing, but it wasn't anything special. And then Kyle Gibson, who I think Kyle Gibson sometimes he shows that he's like a world beater. I mean, in April and May he was dominant, but obviously May and June he's kind of sprung a leak. So I think he's one of them guys that's inconsistent. He's capable of being a third starter, but I
Yeah,
believe he's a little bit closer to being a fourth or fifth starter. And unfortunately, we don't really have like a superstar third starter. Not that any third starter is a superstar, but there's teams that have third starters that could be aces on some teams. So that just tells you, like, obviously that's not across the whole league, but
yeah. Listen, he's going to be pitching tomorrow, right? But he's sometimes right. He's 4-3 with a 4.448 ERA. Like he's a yo-yo. So I think the fact that you're seeing glimpses of productivity is a good sign. That's a good place for him to be. Um, I think like we've talked about on multiple shows on multiple platforms, consistency is important. So until he can put that consistency together, I think he's going to be that sometimes he kind of guy. Um, I think if they can go out and acquire a rotation piece, maybe that does slot him further along in the rotation where he doesn't necessarily have to be relied on as a guy that's going to be insanely productive in your rotation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I just hope that, you know, my early concern when Harper went down was that, here we go. We're going to have to go out and trade one of our only few assets for a hitter now, because knowing in the deep part of my mind that starting pitching really could be improved on this team. Like,
Yeah, like listen, if you
at
had
the
an
end of the day,
opportunity,
you know, Aaron Nola and Wheeler are going to drive the bus in the playoffs, but you still need a consistent third starter. And while Gibson is capable, I'm not sold on him. And if you could improve and upgrade there, I would like that.
oh,
I
definitely.
feel a little
Listen, if
more comfortable if they kind of wait and see. If this Derek Hall, it might just be a short term solution, but if he can continue to put up some power and this offense can play, you know, if they could keep winning series. Obviously, they lost to the Braves. That was a bad start to the stretch. But if you can get that turnaround and now maybe win 2 of 3 from the Cardinals and just keep the momentum going,
yeah,
I think then you see what you got. And obviously, down the stretch at the trade deadline, a lot of teams sometimes will trade multiple players. You might be able to get a package of a starting pitcher and an outfielder, or,
yeah.
an infielder that can
I
help
mean,
utility wise. I
well,
Listen. At the end of the day, if this team can tread water come trade deadline time, you're going to be almost ready to get Bryce Harper and Gene Segura back in your lineup. Like that's going to be like a trade in itself when you get two guys like that back in your lineup.
yeah.
So
I'm with it. I'm with you on that. I think. Listen, the DH definitely helps, right? That saved Harper's season because in any other previous year, he would have been on the DL. He would have got the surgery a couple months ago, and in all likelihood would have missed all, if not most, of the season. So that DH spot gave them the opportunity to be able to get at bats for him and let him be productive in this lineup. If nothing else, Jay, I think having a guy like Derek Hall, right, who right, you can at least have that opportunity for the DH spot to be a place where he could kind of alternate, right? Maybe he alternates between, first base and DH. Maybe, that DH becomes that rotational spot, kind of how they thought they were going to use it, way back when the season started in April. Um, I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited about the Phils. I think at least they're mildly relevant where I can stay interested, where I can check some scores. I'm not it's hard because baseball is like, because there are so many games, you can't sit down and watch every single game. Some of them you got to listen to, some of them are on in the background. um but I think the fact that I'm still checking in, that's a good sign.
absolutely.
Well, Jay, before we go into final thoughts, 4th of July is coming up on Monday. Some fun stuff. What do you like about what do you like about 4th of July?
Well, it's actually been a long time since I was able to watch fireworks because generally I work every 4th of July. Obviously, I'm
Okay.
in retail. I work for a supermarket, and a lot of times I've been at work generally during the evening. So I generally miss fireworks, but I think fireworks to me are still something that I definitely would enjoy doing or going to watch. Um, I've always liked, I remember back in the day as a young kid, even if I didn't go to the Phillies game, I would be able to drive down on 95 and watch the fireworks because they used to have
Ooh,
fireworks on 4th of July, like when the Phillies were home. Now they don't ever do it on 4th of July. It's always like the 5th or the 10th, or it's always different dates. But like back in
right.
the day, I'm old, I'm 46. So it used to be when the Phillies were home, if they were on the 4th, they would have the fireworks. So I would be able to like drive down to Philly. Well, even if the Phillies didn't have the fireworks, they'd have the fireworks, you know, Independence,
Mm-hmm.
what do you call Penn's Landing
Penn's
with
Landing.
fireworks. So either way, you'd get to witness them. So that used to be my kind of go to. Obviously, barbecues. I mean, I'll be going to a barbecue this 4th of July with my co-host from Training in the AM. So that's pretty cool.
Nice. So Jay, what's your go-to barbecue food?
I mean, obviously the staples, burgers and hot dogs. I mean, that's like the norm. But what I
Right.
really enjoy is good ribs.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I love
Anything
ribs.
anything special?
I mean, nothing special. Just I like them slow cooked and really done to the point where it's just like mouth watering.
All right. I listen. I'm a ground beef, make your own patty kind of hot hamburger guy. Um, that you know, and anything on the grill, right, is going to be good. Um, I love. Here's one of the things I love about Fourth of July is that it's not about presents, right? You don't have to bring anything. You don't have to give anything to anybody. Um, I know we always go. We go over to my parents. We walk up to there's a parade that's like a 3 minute walk from their house. So we walk up, go to the parade, come back. My parents live in a cul-de-sac, so they tape off uh, a baseball field in the cul-de-sac in the street, and then we play wiffle ball all day with all the between myself, my brothers, all the kids, and just we basically just kind of hang out all day long. Um, and that's the part that I love. The part and that it's kind of like Thanksgiving in a sense, where like there's no presents. It's just about being around family. So um, that's the part that I love. Um, what did I want? There was something else I wanted to ask you. Oh, movies. You got any Fourth of July, any kind of movies that you like? There's one that I thought of that I really like.
I mean, I don't know if it's a 4th of July movie per se, but Independence Day.
That's the one I was thinking of.
I
I
mean, I
love it.
guess it has that theme, but you know, I don't know if it's necessarily like a 4th of July movie type.
It's not a Fourth of
Kind of
July
like Die
movie.
Hard is a Christmas movie.
Exactly.
It's
Even,
that same
even though
vibe,
I'm
right?
not even though I'm not a Die Hard as a Christmas movie kind of guy.
You understand the vibe.
Yeah, it's about that camaraderie of like coming together and like doing doing that thing that's going to unite a group. Um, and I don't know, it's just the interaction between Will Smith and what's the guy? Who's the guy that plays the other lead character? He's in Jurassic World. Can't think of his name, the actor, but he's got a very very
I know
dry sense of humor, right? But like their two interactions and how they play off each other, I don't know. It's just fun. It's just a fun, and I know it's called Independence Day, even though it's it's a cool, fun movie.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it,
So
and still enjoy
Jay, it's cool. How about for final thoughts, Jay? What do you got for final thoughts tonight?
my final thoughts. Just look out for your people. Just be a presence. Be willing to listen, and just keep an open mind. Any type of holiday. I know 4th of July isn't the same level type holiday as Thanksgiving or Christmas, but it's still a holiday. And, be sympathetic to people that maybe aren't necessarily afforded the opportunity to enjoy the holiday or spend the holiday with loved ones, and know that a lot of people despise holidays. People that are going through depression sometimes don't want to have the holiday.
Yeah,
It brings up bad thoughts, and just be mindful of that. And I guess I don't like being somber on these shows, but I guess my biggest frustration lately is the fact that, and we brought it up on last night's Hate to Feel, and I'm going to bring it up again. I'm going to keep being a voice until something happens. But there was another shooting just yesterday. 2 cops were killed and 5 others injured in another mass type shooting event, and it's just it's too much. It's never ending, and it's frustrating. And this is coming from a gun owner. Something has to be done. Please speak up. And that's my final thought.
Jay, listen, I couldn't want to echo your thoughts anymore, man. Like we always talk about taking care of your people, looking out for your people. Um, I saw this feel good story that I'm gonna share. Uh, Max Scherzer is on a rehab assignment. He was in Double A and did a really cool thing for those guys, because those guys in the minor leagues, they're not taken care of on nearly the same level as the guys that are in the majors. So when those guys go down and they take care of them, it's nice to kind of shed some light. So when he was down there for one game in a rehab assignment, shelled out $7,000 to provide bone-in ribeye, fillet, lobster. Bought everybody in the clubhouse, every employee, AirPods, just for that one period of time, right? Was able to take something and just do something nice for other people. So, we need to shed some light on those kind of things to be able to get our the idea that our athletes are out there doing good stuff, and try to shine some light on that when we get the opportunity to. So,
Amen.
Yeah, with that, Jay, the sponsors, your La Terrain watches, your Team Clicks, your Shocked Energy, all those the Streaker Sports, all those can be found on our link tree. If you click on the link that's in the description of the show, and go check that out. Jay, who you got in the USFL championship game? Your Philadelphia Stars versus the Birmingham Stallions.
Let's go, Philly.
Let's go. Here we go. Let's go, Philly.
Let's go, streaking.
Let's go.
The sponsor. Streaker.
Jay, oh my God. We're going streaking. Here we go. Peace out, Philly.